I call Claire Curran.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Well, I must commend my colleague David Shearer over there for his politeness on this bill, because 6 years is exactly right, is when this bill first came before this Parliament. And one of the most I guess what the passage of this bill through the House shows us is how long a piece of legislation can get stuck in the Parliament. I think this is the third minister who has had charge of it. It started off with Simon Power, it went through John Banks, and now we're up to Craig Foss. And I'd actually challenge that minister to get up and give us an exposition on what the bill is about, and whether he's actually read it, because you know, nothing personal, Mr Foss, but it's actually the fact that this bill has taken so long to get through the House, through all its stages. And in fact, I was just looking back through the speeches, through the committee stage, when this bill was interrupted, which was in 2012, and I was reading the speech by our former colleague, the Honourable Leanne Dalzell, who actually it was actually introduced by her in the former Labor government back in whenever it was, 2008. That the bill was actually introduced by her. It's quite a simple bill. It's actually quite a simple bill. And you've got to ask yourself, why and what does it take to actually move a bill like this through the House quickly and get it and get it off the order books? We actually support it. We all support it. Well, actually, I'm not sure if everyone in the House supports it, but it's actually no real drama. The question really has to be asked: how did that happen? The other question that has to be asked is: how much has it cost? What's the cost been, not just through the processes of getting this bill through the House?
We're on part two.
We're on part two,
yes.
Mr Chair. We're on part two, but I think it's a pretty important question, given that we're now in 2014. The last committee stage reading was in 2012. The bill was introduced in 2009. Well, its first reading was in 2009. It was actually introduced in 2008. I mean, seriously. It is a bit of a joke. It's a historical bill. It's a historical bill, and actually you've got to wonder whether it's out of date and whether anyone's actually bothered to read it tonight to actually work out whether it's actually still relevant. And because actually what it does, and let's look at what it does, Mr Chair, in part two of the bill, because that's what we're discussing, it actually removes the requirement to establish a temporary safeguard authority. And temporary, they're not very temporary, are they, if they've taken 6 years to actually remove it, and enable the existing expertise of, get this, the Ministry of Economic Development. Well, that doesn't even exist anymore. So I think you've actually got to ask yourself whether or not this bill is still relevant. And I do actually, in all seriousness, I do actually ask the Minister to comment on that, on whether or not the bill has been looked at for relevance tonight, and also whether or not anybody has looked at the cost, whether it's in physical monetary terms or otherwise, of not enacting this bill in a timely manner. Because surely, if you're actually putting in a bill, if you're putting a bill through the House that actually removes temporary safeguards, then you'd be thinking that you'd have to do that reasonably quickly, and if you don't, then there would be some impact. So I would be interested to know just what the impact of not moving this bill through all its stages in the House has been. We're still in the committee stage. I have to ask myself whether, on part two of this bill, Mr Chair, I've got to ask really whether we're going to get to the third reading this year, or whether it's going to be another year or two before we actually get through all the phases of this bill. And I think it's a good example of just how long it can take for a piece of legislation to get through the House under this government.
Jamie Lee Ross.
Question be now put.
The question is that the question be now put. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Point of order.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Andrew Williams.
New Zealand First has not had the right to speak on this bill at all yet.
Well, let's not so, because this bill has been before the House before. We've already done
in
part
2012,
one.
Mr. Chair.
We're on part two.
Yes.
We've been on this debate. I've been presiding the whole time. The member hasn't taken a call. The House will decide, the committee will decide whether a closure motion is accepted or not. We have a closure motion. I've put it to the House, and I'll just put it again. There's been a closure motion. The question is that the question be put. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The no ayes have it. Are party votes called for? Ask the clerk to conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
59 in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party.
14 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
7 votes opposed.
Māori Party.
2 in favour.
Mana.
1 opposed.
Act New Zealand.
1 in favour.
United Future.
1 in favour.
Brendan Horan. Any other votes?
Members, the ayes are 63, the noes are 56. The question will be put. The question is a part two, stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Members, we now move to the clauses. The questions is a point of order. Andrew Williams.
A point of order. I just wanted on the record that for the second time today, New Zealand First, the fourth biggest party in this House, has been declined the right to speak on a bill.
That is not a point of order. The member will sit. The member will sit. That is not a point of order. The House decided, the committee decided that a closure motion would be accepted. It was voted on and it was passed. The committee decides, not the chair, the committee decides whether a closure motion is accepted. That's the process of this House. That's the process that we've just gone through. And that's why I've just put it, and it's been passed. We're now moving to the clauses. And the question is, point of order, is this a new point of order?
I stood, as the Labour member was sitting, as she was sitting, I stood.
The member will sit. That is irrelevant. The next speaker who got to get the call was a government member. Labour member was speaking. The next call went to the government member. I accepted the government member. He moved a closure motion. I put it to the committee. The committee decided that the closure motion would be accepted. We've moved on. That's the process. We're now on the clauses. The question is that clauses 1 and 2 stand part. The Honourable Phil Goff.
Mr Chairman, Labor supports this bill, though it does raise the question of why